make it relevant to the theory around change. Thomas Cook is, and by the way, if you want to, we'll get back one now. If you want to tweet anything, please feel free to take anything I say and share it. So, 174, nearly 175 years ago, a man called Thomas Cook took a temperance league, the anti-drinking league, to a meeting. He hired a train, put everyone together, sold the tickets on the train, and the package tour industry was born. And our world has changed a little bit, but arguably not enough in that 174 years. So Thomas Cook, I guess, was famous for travel currency, foreign exchange, the travel store, but obviously the package holiday. And that's still obviously at the heart of our business. But about 3 years ago, we came to the brink of bankruptcy. And we had to bring in a new management team, which I was part, to begin one of the most aggressive public and challenging digital transformations in corporate history. This is the world I live in. It's fundamentally different and complex and challenging to understand. Every time I think I understand something, someone pops up with something else I've got to look at. Every time I think I've got my colleagues to a place where we can go do something, something else comes in and disrupts it. So that old, slightly tired thing of change is the only constant is the world in which many of the travel industry are living. And it's a huge challenge. So what do we do? Well, we started off with realizing that actually most of our business was really a little bit like the Parthenon. Right? It was very siloed, it was very functional, it was very structured, big IT underneath, lots of different people in different organizations not talking to each other. And the bit that really wasn't very stable, the bit that was crumbling, was the customer, the bit on the top. So we realized that one of the things we had to do was take a really deep, hard look at what did we not get and what were we going to change. So a little bit of Ryan theory, for which I apologize. So the easiest way for me to think about digital transformation is in terms of S-curves. And I think that half of this route probably is still on the analog S-curve. That's we are coming to the end of our traditional model, that multi-channel Parthenon model, where it's what we're used to, right? A lot of the colleagues in Thomas Cook that I work with have been there man and boy, or girl and woman, right? They've been there 20-odd years. They're not familiar with the different world that many of the other half of us in this room are dealing with, that disruptive, that need to be agile, to use innovation as a core differentiator, to be able to really understand customer needs. It's not that they don't understand the words, it's that they don't understand how to implement it in their current world. And Thomas Cook is no different from many other organizations going through digital transformation. So the first thing is that we have to get away from the idea that we are just digitizing, that we're taking a lick of digital paint and painting it over our analog problems and saying we're a digital company. Rubbish. Right? We have to find a way that is really about digital transformation. Transformation is about change, not about fine-tuning. Transformation is about re-engineering a business around key fundamental promises. And it starts with the customer. Easy to say, difficult to do. The analogy is that you've got to find a way to move onto a digital S-curve. If you stay at the top of this analog one and keep polishing what existed before, right, it's going to be a very expensive mistake. It's going to take too long, and by the time you get to where you think you need to get to, it's too late. So those of us in the traditional tour operator business, TUI, Thomas Cook, others, a lot of us are still on the analog S-curve. And unless we realize that we have to change onto that digital S-curve and fundamentally re-engineer our business, we weren't going to survive the 2-3 years beyond that rescue bit. So let's just dig a little bit into what I call the digital onion. Right? The digital onion is this idea that you have a customer-centric model. It is a fundamentally different mindset for my colleagues at Thomas Cook. We've moved from the Parthenon, very structured, very siloed, into something which is very customer-centric. And that means re-engineering our technology, our processes, our organization, our structure, our ways of working, our spans and layers, our capability, our analytics, our CRM, our insight, our finance, our HR, everything. Everything has to be re-engineered. So if you look at the onion sort of says, if I can move there, you've got a customer lifecycle approach. So the first thing that we did was say, it begins and ends with the customer. The customer lifecycle is the thing against which we stress test every single change and initiative that we do. One. And those of you involved in customer experience design know that after the customer lifecycle, you really look at customer journey mapping. So we started to take a use case approach and say, do we have a great customer segmentation that we can divide and conquer and understand? No. Right, go get a great customer segmentation. We fundamentally reviewed and re-energized and looked at our customer segmentation. That, of course, requires data and insight and analytics and so on, right? That meant we had to get new capabilities just to do that. And then we said, well, if we want to actually, in a Thomas Cook as a tour operator, we're unusual. Our greatest barrier to entry is that we own the end-to-end life cycle. The inspiration, the retail stores, the online. We own 5 airlines, right? Hotels, in-destination management, complaint handling, and back, hopefully, to have had a great holiday, right? So, whereas an OTA, and I'm going to be a little bit rude about OTAs, right? They serve a great purpose. But let's not confuse the fact that an OTA just does one thing. Books. They'll tell you they inspire, but they don't. They book, right? Very, very important part. That's where the money's made, right? But no one's really doing inspiration well. And OTAs that have tried to do it have said, yeah, but we can't make any money out of it. Right, because you're only looking at one vertical. What do digital startups do? They disrupt one vertical. Airbnb, Uber, these unicorns, okay, that have come in and are now twice, 3 times the size of Thomas Cook in the space of 2 or 3 years, highly disruptive. Real worry for me about where's our future, but they do one thing and they do it brilliantly and at scale. Huge lessons for us. So if your business model says we do lots of things, how do you afford that? How can you do all of that brilliantly and deeply? Well, you can't. So part of what you have to think about is how do you partner? How do you open up your systems, your APIs, all the other things you've been hearing about yesterday and today? What's the right way? Where do we as a tour operator add value? Well, I can tell you it's around trust, guarantee, certainty. You know, if you have a Thomas Cook holiday and you're unlucky enough to be in a natural disaster, we have a crisis management team. Right? We have airlines that we can put new flights on and fly you back. We can move you to different hotels. You don't get that through an OTA. And I'm not knocking OTAs, I work with a lot of them, right? But it is a niche. So we have to start thinking about it as a customer life cycle, and we have to pitch our battles and make sure that we can do what we intend to do and do it brilliantly. And I'll be honest, we ain't there yet. There's lots more work for us to do. So what we started off was saying, well, there are some things when you've got 5 regions with, we had 100, don't quote me on this, 160 something, a lot of brands, 100 and something brands, right, 3 years ago. We had 5 different tour operators, 5 different airlines. We were sending aircraft all the way to Asia to get serviced when we had one of our own airlines with spare maintenance capabilities in Manchester. Doesn't make sense. So the sort of things we looked at and said, and this is not about centralization, what can you horizontalize? What makes sense to do once and do well and gets efficiency and gets scale? And where do you have to sort of verticalize? What's the stuff that needs to be very target, very market specific? If you look at the German market, there are over 10,000 travel shops in Germany. 10,000. If you look in the Nordics, that's not in our business, right? We've got about 600. But if you look in the Nordics, we don't have any travel shops. So fundamentally different markets, different dynamics means you can't do one size fits all, but you can start to get efficiencies and scale. It makes no sense having 2 hotel track teams go to the same hotel in Rhodes to do a contract for Germany and a contract for Nordics. Go once. So we started to look at and said, what can we horizontalize? Horrid word, but I'm trying not to say centralize because it's not about putting everything into a group function. It's absolutely not about creating a big heavy group. We looked at customer, we looked at web, we looked at CRM, we looked at product, we looked at, and we use this term one. We tried to create, where possible, the efficiencies. This is the model that Expedia used, all right? They have one UX, one platform, and they optimize the hell out of it. And that's our model too. We want to try and create one where we can and optimize as much as possible. But everything started with the customer. Do our products match the customer? Do we need to change them? Have our customer segments changed? What should we be investing in our hotel fund to get the right product? Should it be a boho chic kind of hotel, or should it be a big family hotel with 300 and 400 rooms? What do our customers say? What's the need? How many of our customers go into store? How much of them want to inspire online and go and book offline? Do we care about online, offline? Should we just have an experience? Do we want to inspire, or just want to book? When we get to an aircraft, we want to sell them, a better seat or a better meal, or do we just want to get them from A to B quickly? Is it fun flying on a Thomas Cook aircraft? Right. Do we know? Do our customers tell us? Most of the people that complain are the ones that are unhappy. The ones that are happy don't ever complain. Right? So how do you know? So a fundamental change. Customer sounding boards, customer insight, deep research on the customer, informing every single decision. So, what we ended up with is, we start with a strategy, no surprise there, all right? And in this case, we're doing a digital transformation, so it's a digital strategy, and we have a clear goal. At the end of 5 years, we will have done A, B, C, D, E, right? Digital transformations take 5 to 7 years. Not 1 or 2, not 2 or 3, and organizations that tell you they can do it in 3 are lying, right? They take 5 to 7 years, because you have to start with fundamentally re-engineering and re-plumbing, then you have to optimize, and then in that sort of 3 to 4 to 5 years where you start to get the returns. It's hard work. So what we said was, well, we'll have certain things which are strategic, lines in the sand, that we are going to fundamentally change how Thomas Cook works and thinks and operates. Wave 1, cost out. The reason we went bankrupt? Poor management, investment in the wrong sort of deals, and we'd ended up with, too much debt. So cost out, become more efficient. Spans and layers. There were 11 layers between the CEO and the junior person in the company. 11 layers, if you like, between the customer and the CEO. There are now 6 or 7, depending on the market. What that does is that pushes empowerment out into the teams. It starts to create capabilities, permission seeking, not forgiveness. So don't go in and seek, don't seek forgiveness, not permission. So don't go in saying, can I do? Go do it, give the boundaries in which you want people to work, reward them for that success, and make sure that you can leverage it and work differently. But then we looked at a whole series of enablers. There were some things that had to be in place to enable that change to be sustained. It wasn't that they weren't there, it's that we didn't have the right focus or the right capabilities, or we hadn't got this efficiency, this horizontalization. Things like CRM, Frog was our new website design. One web, one inventory, trying to do things much more efficiently, not just for cost, but for agility. As the market was changing, as a new startup comes in, how do you respond to that disruption? You need that agility, you need processes and systems that you can very quickly integrate, you can partner with, that can be open. Right? Fundamental mind shift for us in Thomas Cook. And lastly, you've got some accelerators. Let's Go Digital is our internal culture change program. We send people off to Silicon Valley, right? Said, go learn, go build a network, go find some people, come back with some ideas, become an evangelist for digital change. And we send a mixed team of senior managers and junior people. Things like reverse mentoring, digital weeks where we invited startups and pure plays in to help us understand what they did differently. New tools, collaboration, video conferencing software, instant messaging, right? All of the sort of hygiene factors that you need. We've looked at new spaces, collaboration, creative spaces, open plan working. How do you break down this hierarchy? How do you empower people to drive change? Right? The one thing that Thomas Cook had was a workforce that were passionate about the brand. But the brand was tired, so we revitalized the brand as well. It's now got a heart. So we're looking all the time at how do we evolve, right? The journey's far from over. We're 3 years into a 5-6 year plan, right? And it's hard. And we've had some setbacks. And some things haven't gone quite the way we planned, but actually what you've now got is a capability that says, I'm not expecting everything to go exactly as planned. Actually, it's kind of the salesman's mentality. I look for the no, because that means I'm closer to the next yes. Right? So what is it that I can do? I'll test, I'll learn, I'll test and learn. But failure isn't something that we're afraid of. We look at it as a way to make sure that we're driving to success. Clearly, you don't want to keep repeating failure, because that's not so helpful. So, How do we get on? Well, I've divided it basically into sort of 3 large quadrants, 6 little things. The first was really around what I call the architecture. I'm not talking technical, but the architecture of digital change and transformation. This is really around content and digital asset management as a philosophy. Content is absolutely key to what we do, across all channels and across all parts of the customer lifecycle. We can't do that unless our IT system, our infrastructure, our architecture is open, scalable, and agile. So, for example, I took over the development team in January. In January, we were typically at about 9 to 10 weeks release cycles that never went in on time and never delivered the full scope. Right? In 3 months, we're now down at monthly release cycles. We're about to go to fortnightly, and we've hit every single monthly target on time to scope. Right? Some basic stuff that you can do that helps drive that velocity of change. Second area is the sort of, I apologise, well, maybe not, but quite a lot of Americans in the room, for the Americanization of this, productization. These are horrible words. But what I'm trying to get to is the idea that this isn't about a product, but you have to think in terms of being able to create almost like black boxes. It's almost like the API of the customer experience. How can I test, learn, try? If that doesn't work, plug another version in, test that. That sort of productization. The customer experience, putting at the heart of our design methodology, for every single product, every single new hotel, every single release on the website, what we do in change in the call center. Everything has that customer experience-centric process. You cannot change without innovation. And innovation cannot be an incubator you shove off in Shoreditch, you know, and have people in jeans and eating pizzas late into the night. That's not innovation. Innovation is something that needs to be part of your DNA. And it's bloody tough. Right, in a tour operating business where most of the people are male and over 40, and I include myself sadly in that category, right? We're not naturally innovative. You know, the young guys coming in are hugely innovative and creative, and why not? Can't we just, and what do you mean we can't, right? Trying to create that as a principle of how we work. By the way, we do have a little incubator that we do test and learn, but it's a difference, it's a management issue. And that really kind of brings me on to the biggest thing that people underestimate in digital transformation, and then we focus on at Thomas Cook, the spiritualization. It is all about people. A company is all about people, and it's all about people because that's what you employ people to do to make a difference. And if you don't tap into that potential, and you don't empower it through a culture change program that gives them that capability, and you don't have the leadership in the boardroom. When we started this, we had one CEO, Harriet Green, one of the most digitally savvy CEOs in the world. We've now got Peter Fankhauser, okay, who's extremely digitally savvy too. All right. So in the boardroom, digital is an issue. We have a CDO job. My job is partly evangelization, but also to keep pushing the finger and saying, why not? Too slow. Do more. No. Try something this. You need that spiritualization. You need leadership. And I would say, if we look at it in terms of what are the key lessons learned, because I'm now on time's up. You know, firstly, Rome's not built in a day, right? This will not happen overnight, but you can have a lot of quick wins overnight. You can start the change tomorrow. You can start to create a groundswell of change. Secondly, make what you sell. So do not just say, here's a product, I hope I can find some customers that want it. This is the old tour operator, the multi-channel approach. Here's what you can buy through this channel, and this is the way it's done. Right? Listen to your customers. Right? So make what you sell. Listen to what the customers want and change your products to fit what the customer's needs are. This has been a theme for the last couple of days, the criticality of analytics. You cannot do any of this without data. And if one thing I have learned and one thing I have banged the drum on, every single decision we take is based on data and insight. Right? I will not do a release in the web dev team unless the business can tell me what the value of that release is going to be, and if that value has a higher net present value than another proposition. Right? It's brutal. It's about, if it works and it converts, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't. Digital culture change needs the highest prioritization. That's linked to the bottom left, the role of the CEO. You will not succeed in transforming Thomas Cook or any other analog business or any business unless your CEO is not the chief sponsor and architect of digital transformation. Fact. And if you're in a company where that isn't the case, come and talk to us, because we've got a company where that is the case. Right? don't waste your time if basically your leadership is not absolutely the architect and the driver behind your digital transformation. So that is 174 years, of which the last 3 have been pretty white knuckle ride in about 18 minutes. And I think we're now going to open it up to the moderators and questions.